Hi, welcome listeners to the FTS in the Zoom podcast. I'm your host, Lawrence Yang, a family doctor from Surrey, British Columbia. And with me today is Ratha. Is it Ratha Chek? Is that how you say
Yes,
it?
Ratha. Yes, Ratha Check. The H is silent. So I will, respond if you call me Ratha. I will also respond if you call me Ratha. So
Ratha. And what's the tell me what your name means. My name Lawrence means laurel. It's like a leaf of some type or something. What does your name mean?
that's cool. So I was born in Cambodia. And so the name Ratha was given to me by my grandfather, which means kingdom.
Ah,
So
kingdom.
kingdom, yes.
So you're a whole
Big,
kingdom.
big and expansive. Yes.
Big and expensive. Your name shows up today on your Zoom as Somatic Studies, and I'm guessing is that the name of your business?
Yes, that is the institute in terms of as well as being a registered clinical counselor. I also have an institute or a program where I train counselors how to work somatically with clients. So yeah.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And I guess a little background for the audience. You and I first met, I think I had asked for your help. I was working with a particular client, and
Yes.
that client was having a lot of challenges, and they had difficulty with mobility and social integration. And you actually volunteered to go to their home. So
Yeah.
I was doing home visits, and you started to do home visits to assist my patient, and I
Yes.
appreciate that so much.
Mhm.
That was such a huge help for that patient. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Um, Now you're currently still working in the healing space.
Yes.
You're actively involved. You also run a Facebook group, and I believe that Facebook group also has the name Somatic Therapies.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So is that what you do? Do you focus really on
Yeah. Well,
somatic therapies?
I really strive to keep what I do simple and accessible. Going back to working with your client, and that was a long time ago, and it was in and about the time when I focus working somatically. So for me, it's about accessibility, right? And so whatever I do, whatever I offer is about create an opportunity where client can access support, where client can access me, where client can access healing. So I'm hoping for my sharing today that what I want very much to share is very simple. It doesn't need to be complicated. Yeah. So yeah.
So what would you define somatic therapy as? Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. What do you tell?
Well,
What does that mean?
somatic comes from the Greek word soma, means the living body. And so for me, it's about the body has its own intelligence. The body is life. And so somatic therapy is working from a body centered approach. So meaning along with talk therapy, we provide somatic centered or body centered approach, which also utilizes the practice of yoga, using breath work, touch, body work, music, movement in order to heal. So those are all bottom up approaches, and that we incorporate into talk therapy. So not just working with cognition or mind or the mental processes, alone, but the recognition that the body has intelligent, and it holds memories, past memories and experiences that we suppress over the years. So basically for me, working with the unconscious, working with the unconscious. And when we do that is very much about allowing the unconscious to become conscious. And now we have something to work with. And now we have, some control over our stuff, and in order to
Mm.
transform healing and so forth. So I think that's in a nutshell is somatic for me. But uh, so that's in general. But the somatic work that I developed over the years specifically is not just body centered, but for me, it's also body centered and soul based. My client, and that actually came from my work with my client. After their session, they often describe healing at the soul level. And what do I mean by soul? Well, for me, it's this essence of self, essence of who we are. It is our core identity, our personality, and memories. And for me, soul is this this forever enduring, a forever unchanging part of self. And I look up soul a little while ago, and I wanted, where's my cell phone? It's not here. I wanted to share with you what the definition from a dictionary, what soul is. Soul is believed to be able to survive our physical death.
Mm.
So the fact that tapping into or reclaiming after healing soul, right, our true essence, it's forever, enduring, forever unchanging, regardless of what happens to us, our challenges, our trauma, and so forth. The soul, is this innate quality of who we are that, over years got suppressed, misplaced, ignored, impeded, violated, and so forth. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I grew up in the Catholic Church, and I remember them speaking about the soul and everlasting life. So there's some resonance there with some of the constructs that I was raised with. Um, uh, when I first met my wife, she was raised Hindu, and so she also spoke of soul, and she spoke of connection with the grand creator soul, and how we are all manifestations
Yeah.
of soul.
Yeah.
And so yeah, there's some resonance there. And so some of your clients experience healing on the soul level.
At the deep, and it I first, coin what I do, like everyone else, somatic therapy, and then over the years my client talk about the soul, the spirit, the energy, and I go, okay, yeah, sure. yeah that makes sense. And so for me, it's the work that I do is when I say, I like to keep it simple. Really, it's about, whatever happens to us. My work is about um, um, creating opportunity for my client to connect to self. Okay, self is the body, but soul is, deeper than it's deeper. Yeah, and
Mhm.
so it's really, that's all I do. I reconnect my client to their body, to their spirit, to their soul. My work is done. Because when we are able to connect to self, right? There's this like awareness, awareness come, and clarity comes. There exists a lot of things in between the body, between us and the body. So I work, with the in between, the resistance, between us and the body. And once I'm able to remove, and with my client remove all of that unconscious resistance, now here we are, the client connect to self, and my work is done. That makes any
I'm,
sense?
I'm struggling to visualize. You
Hmm.
said there's resistance between the
Hmm.
self and the body. Is that what you said?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm,
Okay.
I'm trying to
So
understand. Yeah.
okay, self is the body. Sorry. So um, thank you for asking that question again. So for me, self is the body, and so most often we don't exist here in the body or in the self. We exist here. We hoover, in the periphery of self, right? And because connecting to self is connecting to pain. connecting to disappointment, shame, resentment, right? And so we exist outside of self. We exist outside of the body. And so my work is to bring the client close to themselves, right? And then we heal here.
I think I have an idea what you're talking about. That you mentioned something called body intelligence, and I
Mm,
remember 20 years ago in medical school, we were engaged in dissecting as a group, dissecting human bodies. People had volunteered their physical bodies for dissection so that
wow.
we could learn about anatomy. I
Mm,
remember dissecting and seeing how the brainstem and how the brain was connected through the spinal cord to all the nerves throughout the body. And I realized in that moment, our brains are not just here. Our brains are out, connected, integrated throughout the entire body. Like the nervous system,
I am so excited to hear you say that. Thank you. Yes.
yeah, the peripheral nervous system is not separate from the central nervous system, that it's a completely integrated system. And so I can kind of conceptualize that body intelligence is could be memory of some of that pain that you said that people try to disconnect with but cannot actually fully disconnect with. And so they try to segment their lives and separate from some
Yeah. Yes.
pain, right?
Yes.
And so,
Order to cope. And for me, I always said to my client or people that the body is the brain. While the mind can lie, the body always tell the truth, right? And so and the truth, and can be painful. And so our work is about a willingness to connect to the truth, right? Connect to pain, uh, connect, to all the things that we, push aside, minimize, disconnect in order to cope with life. And so we survive rather than thrive, and the body has an innate ability to heal itself. And so while yeah and so thriving is about connecting to the body in
mm.
in my experience. Yeah.
So that's starting to make sense. So your work is about bringing to the consciousness some of what people have tried to stuff into the subconscious and not to
Yes.
recognize, not to see. And
Yes.
then once
Yeah.
they're facing
Yeah.
that pain, that discomfort, or that maybe the traumas, they
Yeah.
feel more integrated, and maybe
Yeah.
healing is going back and really being integrated into the body again, their
Yes.
experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's about connection. I've always experienced that a disconnection or a separation or our need to compartmentalize ourselves in order to function, causes suffering. So then I spoke earlier about connecting client to their body. So if suffering is a disconnection, then healing is about connection. It's about
Mhm.
connectedness, right? And not just to the body, to the soul, spirit, energy, to um, uh, a, the community that supports us. So it is about connections. Yeah.
Mm. In my education as a Western allopathic physician, we don't talk about these things. We don't talk about energies as much. We don't talk about soul. We very rarely talk about
Yeah.
soul, even though most of the great practitioners and teachers that we have, you can
Yeah.
see that they're
Yeah.
soulful spiritual people, but we don't talk about it very much. And in our training, we're actually somehow like there's almost like a hidden curriculum which teaches us to ignore our bodies and to accept suffering for the purpose of trying to serve others. But so many of us find that we burn ourselves out because we ignore our bodies so much in the pursuit of excellence at work or perfection at work. And then so many of us who are supposed to be in the healing work, in the helping professions in medicine, we actually end up with a lot of physical ailments ourselves.
Yes.
I've definitely experienced that.
Yes.
Um, so I think if we were to integrate some of the understanding that you have into our understanding of healing and wellness, that would be really, really helpful. Mhm.
I
How did you
will do
come?
my best, Lauren.
You'll do your best.
Yes, yes.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And
You. How did you come across the healing profession? Like it's obvious to me that you're very empathic.
Yes.
You care a lot about people. I mean, I was so impressed when you volunteered time to help out one of our mutual clients. It's not something I would normally find anywhere. What do you think it was about your journey earlier on that drew you into this work? What is your origin story, Rata?
I um well, I'll start a little bit in terms of where I came from. So myself and my family immigrated here to Vancouver, Canada in 1974 from Cambodia. And so I have had experience as a young child fleeing violence. Yeah. And so then my work, okay, so then like, coming here, so reaching out to community, reaching out to for support, very much became natural, in order to survive. And again, connection. And so I think in terms of my childhood experience, and I don't think I chose this work. I think this work chose me. I think this work is very much an extension of who I am, more of who I am and less of what I do. So when people ask me these questions, although I have a better practice with it, in the past I struggle. I struggle why I do this work when, because it was never a question. I never question it. I never choose it. So it chose me. And again, this natural process of, I've always been a person in service to others, in service of others. And so, arriving here as a young child, 7 years old from a war-torn, a country, we have had good support, my family and I. And so just recognizing or being grateful in terms of what we had and what we didn't have, and just that appreciation, and just creating an opportunity for others to experience in terms of how my family and I have experienced our healing, and welcoming in community. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I hear in what you're saying a lot of gratefulness, like a lot of gratefulness for Canada, for
Yeah.
how you are received and
Yes.
connected in
Yeah.
community.
Yeah.
And it's so lovely to hear that it sounds like you had a refugee experience.
Yeah.
Would you call
Yeah.
it that? And that you actually found that you like you were welcomed and you had a good experience, because there are still many refugees coming to this country and many have had good
I'm
experiences.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I'm sure, I've had those moments and experience of being bullied, being different, so forth. But I think for me, focusing on what worked, focusing what was helpful, is where I want to invest my energy. And that's the area where, I want to expand. And so having that communication and expansion, I think is important. Um, grace and gratefulness comes from difficulties and challenges and hurt and pain. Yeah. Yeah.
I think you appreciate very much how there is kind of pain and darkness
Hmm.
coinciding with wellness and light and stuff. I don't know if that's a common acceptance
Yeah.
by our culture in Canada. I don't know. I think that
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
some expectation for everything to be smooth
Yes.
sometimes. I don't know.
Yes. Yes. I
Mm.
know. Yeah. It's yeah. And we always have something to learn with others. I'm sorry, but we always have things to learn from other people, right? Again, if you know whatever our perception is in our situation, is to really be open to other people's experiences and learn from that. And so it's,
Mm.
for me, change is change is an interactional um, um, process.
It's a relational thing too,
Yes, yeah,
to
yes,
make change
yes,
and to
yes,
heal. It is.
yeah.
Mhm. Can you tell me a little bit about Cambodia? I've never been to Cambodia. I don't know anything about the war that was there or whatever.
Yeah,
You were only 7 when you left, so
yes,
you might
yes,
not
and
actually have.
yeah, I've we've always traveled quite a bit as well too. We left the country because my father was sent to Thailand to do research in tropical medicine. So him and a group of Cambodian people or professionals were sent out of the country in order to develop vaccination for malaria back in those days.
Oh,
And so are you asking about my I go off into my family. So
cheers.
so in 1974, all the Cambodian professionals had received a letter to come back, to return to Cambodia in order to help and so forth. But my parents refused to return because they knew what had happened. But all of the professionals that was sent out um, with my father returned, and they were all executed, right? And so, we have experienced, yeah, I've experienced a lot of, vicarious trauma. And then in 1978, we sponsored 23 of our relatives from the refugee camp. So that was
Wow.
1978 to now. Hundreds have expanded, and from 23 family sponsored from the refugee camp. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So there was something going on in Cambodia where they were
Oh,
trying to
yeah.
kill a lot of intellectuals.
Yeah. It's the Khmer Rouge. So have you heard of a movie called The Killing Fields?
I've heard
So
of it, but I
yeah.
haven't seen it.
Oh, I will send you a link. Yes. The Killing Field happened from 1974 to I think 1978, where the country was shut down and the communists, and so the idea was they wanted to kill all the professional rich people, and once they've achieved that, they call it day one, so everybody's equal. So yeah, it was I like, to be honest with you, I think there's a lot of people know more about the Holocaust in Cambodia as opposed to me, because it's kind of too close. So I just, I surfaced the information,
Mm,
and in terms of how the war started and all that stuff, I
mm,
remain somewhat at a convenient
mm.
distance and stuff
I
like that.
recall my father actually he was a child and left Vietnam as a child, and so back to what you do these days. You mentioned that you experienced vicarious trauma.
Yeah, yes.
Is
And
but vicarious trauma, does it only exist in war, or can vicarious trauma be from anything?
a client and therapist, absolutely. It's what you mentioned earlier about you as a physician, have also felt a physical pain and trauma and so forth, right? It's the word is sort of like we kind of take on, we quote unquote, for lack of a better, absorb, yeah, and personalized and relate to our client's experience. And so we can develop trauma, PTSD from a close experience working with our client, right? And so I do a lot of teaching in my training in terms of how to not take on, how to not support, you know, um, um, how to uh, be with clients' issues, but not hold on to clients' issues, right?
Oh, wow.
Right.
We
And
are
and
not
how
taught that.
and
Mhm.
how to have sort of, again, this equal energy exchange when we work intimately, with with clients, so that we are in our host, we are in our body, we are connected to our breath when we work with client's body and the client's breath, that we are in our own. So we don't lose sight of that. If we lose sight of that, we'll be hit from the inside out, and it will be, have difficulties ourselves. Yeah.
I think you're saying kind of like energetic boundaries between you and the person you're trying to work with in
Yes.
healing.
Yes. It's turning off.
So,
It's not. Yeah.
mhm.
Go ahead.
I was going to say that in my training as a family doctor, we are never taught that, but we are taught to listen, to attune, and to do things to help patients and
Yes.
and we're like often
Yes.
the only person the patients can connect to without paying extra money because their taxes have already paid for the medical services plan that allows them to come and see us. So that
Mm-hmm.
we're often stuck
Yeah.
trying to help people in
Yeah.
attuning, building deep
Okay.
relationships. We're not skilled to know how to have this distance, this
You may,
healthy professional
and it's
distance.
actually not a distance. I will explain.
Oh,
And okay, you mentioned about tuning to the client, but what is equally important, if not most important, is a tuning to yourself while you are tuning to the client. This is what I mean about in an equal energetic exchange. And it's not about boundaries, because for me, when I work somatically with my client, it's a very intimate connection, a very intimate process. We bring it's not about, and I think that's the difference between other profession and our profession as somatic therapists. It's not about what we do to the client. It's very much like we bring our whole self, we bring our whole body into our work, right? So therefore, so when it's intimate like that, when we create these boundaries, the client immediately notice that we're cut off, notice that we disengage, notice that and they may feel some sense of abandonment, right? So for me, it's not a boundary that we create in order to not to absorb. It's about attuning and connecting to yourself while you are still connecting with your client. So meaning that recognize what comes up for you. I feel triggered. I feel this. I feel, sad. Recognize what's happening with you. Breathe into what is happening with you. Release what is happening to you, and then come back and connect with the client. So it's this cycle of connecting to yourself, connecting to the client, connecting yourself, connecting your client. It's this ongoing energetic exchange rather than a cutoff, if that makes sense. Because when you cut off, you're not only disconnecting with the client, you're also disconnecting to yourself.
mm,
And it's not going anywhere. It's still here. You see?
mm,
And so for me, when we talk about energetic energy, right? For me to preserve the integrity of energy, it needs to move. So whatever emotion clients brings out, and then I feel that emotion, and then I breathe and I move it, right? So the energy, emotions are energy, pain's energy, memory's energy, that needs to keep on moving. That makes any sense?
So you actually have you have an intelligence where you're able to move
Yeah.
energy, and I hear you saying breathing into it.
Breath. Breath.
Um,
See, breath moves energy.
mm, that's not something that's in our school of
Yeah.
thought and our
Right.
paradigm, but I'm happy to try to incorporate it and try to understand it. Um, so let's say I'm with a client and they are they're having a cathartic moment. They're letting
Mhm.
out their emotions. I'm attuning to it. I feel their sadness
Yes.
and I start to feel uncomfortable. I can just be aware, okay, I'm
Okay.
feeling that. And then I can just be aware of my breathing and breathe through it. How do
Okay.
I release? You
Okay.
mentioned releasing it.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Okay. Okay. I've just lost my train of thought. Okay, sorry. So you mentioned, okay, so how do you say this again? The client is,
Yeah,
oh, okay, yeah. So the moment you recognize or feel triggered, the moment you feel uncomfortable with client's emotion, guess what happened? We stop breathing, for lack of a better, our breathing shift, right?
mm,
Our breath becomes shallow, become shallow, staggered, and short in order not to feel the discomfort. And so therefore the discomfort still stay here. It hasn't moved anywhere. So in order to move it, we need to fully breathe into our belly. Keep on breathing and recognize what's happening with you rather than ignore it or minimize it. And sometimes when, let's say, for example, if it gets to be too much, name it. It's too much, so I would, let the client know, okay, so a lot is happening here. I'm also feeling that. It's about being human. I'm also feeling that. Okay, let's pause here and place our hands on our body and let's just breathe together here and maybe do a bit of body tapping to release what's happening. You see what I mean? Right? I'm sharing what the client, what's happening with me, but not in, so many words. For me, less is less is better, right? And so sharing that and coming to my own and guiding that with the client, right, and it's okay to pause and breathe, right, and yeah, and if it is too much for you, it is too much, and it's okay to communicate that. Yeah.
mm. So, okay, I'm starting to get that kind of co-regulation and taking time to
Yes,
regulate.
correct. Yes.
What is the tapping about? What does tapping do?
It's a bilateral stimulation. It's like, what's happening is that when the client have an intense emotional release and you're feeling that emotional energy discharge, you can go into a freeze, your nervous system go into a freeze, right? So you're freezing. So this great movement, right? And right, left brain, and great movement, great breath. And so that, move us out of uh, the sympathetic nervous system, freeze, fight, flight, back into the parasympathetic nervous system. And we heal in the parasympathetic nervous system.
Mm. So you're kind
Yeah.
of bringing a calming
Yes. Right.
stimulus to
Yes.
kind of shake us
Right.
out of
Movement and
fight or flight.
breathing. Yes. And even just, just doing side to side, right? And sometimes rubbing the hand, the face, right? And just having,
Mm. Kind of coming back to the present moment almost
yes.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. So sort of a way to kind of like unfreeze um, us, getting us unstuck, because we can't get stuck with the client,
Mm.
right? And vice versa. If we haven't worked through our stuckness, the client's going to feel it, right?
Yeah, I
Right?
think I've heard clients before or patients say before that doctor has something going on with them. I
Yeah.
don't, I don't want to see them again. Like I've tried to
Yes,
refer to some
yes. Yeah.
certain specialists, and the patients are like, "Do not send me there again. It's not.
Yes,
It doesn't feel safe."
yes,
And they're not speaking about something obvious like there's weapons or anything there. They're just not feeling safe. They sense
yes.
something that's there.
It's because it's our closeness. And when we have stuff that we haven't, we as, like, clinician or professional have not worked through our own stuff, then we become quite guarded and closed, right? And clients can feel this. And that's when I talk about earlier in terms of our wood is intimate. When we work, it's our body and the client's body. And so they can feel your body, right? It's energy to energy, right? And so if we're closed, then they can feel that closeness. If we're fearful, they can, and we're uncertain, they can, sense it. Well, of course, we're not the one in the know, right? And what's
Mhm.
happening, so is a client, right?
What are some examples of things that are common areas of stuckness where adults or people that you work with get stuck? what are some things that cause stuckness?
I think the stuckness is a maladaptive way of coping, of functioning. We talked earlier about repressed emotions, implicit memories, the unconscious, and that's held in the body. And for me, it is the unconscious that dictates or shape most of our current functioning, right? And
Mm,
so yeah, and so again, the stuckness has to do with our sort of like pattern, or a pattern uh, of our thought pattern, our emotional pattern, a physical pattern. So the stuckness can come in various way, and the client, yeah, and it's unconscious, and the stuckness is really mostly for me, it's a resistance. It's I think if I were to ask, like what one thing that keeps us from healing is fear.
oh, so
Fear of, yeah, fear of what happened if I go there, and what happened if I feel that pain, what happened if I remember, what it's the fear, right? The one thing, the big culprit that stops us from healing is fear. And so there is this unconscious resistance, right? And so for me, my work is easy. I often describe my work to my clients. I am a fear holder and breath facilitator. Only two things. So meaning that, when my client go through fear, I hold on to their fear so they can move through whatever they need to move through, right? And so, we heal that much deeper in community. So for me, it's just being there in order to, so it's not so fearful when you go through an emotional memory, emotional pain or memories, a past memory. I'm there, so it's not as fearful. We journey this together. And so I hold on to their fear and I facilitate the breath, because breath moves everything. Breath moves, right? And so for me, working with the breath, using the breath as a tool, for me is like working from the inside out, right? It's working with the body, but body intelligent. It's breath. Breath is huge. And I don't think we give enough credit to breath therapy or breath work in our healing process. Yeah.
I don't think we give almost any respect to it in my field. I mean, just recently, in the past maybe 15 to 20 years, we started talking about box breathing. So some clinicians in my area have come around box breathing, but I think that you're talking about
I can show you more than box breathing.
I think you're talking about
Think
something
about it.
different.
Yeah, yeah. And if you ask, well, why breath? Well, guess what? Breath is life, and it's everything. Right? We don't breathe. The moment we recognize that emotions are painful and experience hurt, we stop breathing. Right?
Mm.
So remember soma from the Greek is the living body, life, right? Is to fill the body with life. That's what I do. And connect for the individuals to connect to their body, to life, right? And then we release, what's not working, what's not life, right? Does that make sense? Yeah.
Some people would say, I breathe all the time. I'm fine. I'm breathing. But they can still be really stuck because
Yeah.
they're not breathing with
No,
intention.
no, they're
No.
not breathing. Guaranteed. We think we're breathing until you step into my session. The first thing you'll say, it was, "Oh my God, I can't believe I have not been breathing. I cannot believe I have." Exactly. We think we're breathing, we are not. Right. And that's why we have difficulty sleeping. And so we're not breathing. It's hard to be in the body. So I work with the breath in order for people, the clients, to connect to their body. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. No, we are not breathing. We're in our head, and our breathing is very much chest breathing, very shallow, chest, short. Yeah. Yeah, and because guaranteed, if I work with people's breath, will facilitate the breath deeply, you'll start to feel.
You're gonna uncover, you're gonna unlock
You'll start
all
to
this.
feel naturally. You have to feel and sense and remember. Yeah, yeah.
Remember good things? Remember bad things?
Yeah. Oh, talk about good thing. This is what I encourage my client in order to, move through their own healing is this. When we suppress all the bad things, like you say, when we suppress the bad thing, the negative thing, the hurtful thing, we also suppress the good thing, the peaceful thing, the nice thing, the gentle thing, because the body speaks only one language. When we suppress, we suppress everything. So sometime during my session, when we work through pain, all of a sudden the laughter comes. It's like, where did that come from exactly? Well, it's hidden there. The joy is have been suppressed with the rest of the emotions that we try to suppress and avoid. So when we suppress, difficult stuff, or negative stuff, painful stuff, we also suppress joy and love, and contentment. Yeah. Mhm.
What you're describing, it sounds very valuable, and I've witnessed the benefits that you've been able to bring to many of my patients who've suffered significant traumas and who were really being stuck in their lives. Where does, sometimes in my medical training, my classmates were like, we never read about that, so that must not be a thing. Where are the published studies about it, and so, et cetera, et cetera. So, but it
Um,
sounds like there is a technology. You are speaking of a technology around breathing, the how to breathe and stuff. Who invented that?
okay. Okay. So when you say there's no literature there, well, um, but you have all that you need in order to work effect, and that is intuition, and that's common sense. We can read, here and there, but then to also rely on intuition, our innate sense of what works and what doesn't work.
in
So
in
what
our
I
field, we're not allowed to do that. In our field, we're
know,
we're supposed to rely on the evidence and just what other people have published already. I'm being
then
facetious.
I can't help you.
I'm being facetious. Most
Yes,
physicians are
yeah.
very
Mm,
intuitive and they use their intuition a lot,
yeah.
but there is this conflict. There's a fear. There's a fear in some of our profession of referring to the therapy that you're speaking of because they
But
don't understand it.
but Lawrence, uh, how about we stop fighting? How about not, see it as conflicting, a practice or modality or treatment, but you know, um, pick and choose elements, and these are basic elements of the both medical and spiritual practice, and integrate them, because I really don't believe that there's one treatment and there's another treatment. I think that treatment that works, treatment that is forever lasting, is really the same, similar, in my
Mm.
opinion, in my experience.
What is one thing that you wish that medical doctors in British Columbia knew? Maybe about somatic therapy, maybe about something else. Is there one thing that you're like, oh, I wish these doctors knew this, or I wish they experienced this? What might that be?
Okay, so I have lots. And so I go, maybe this one, I'm just going to jot some things down, so that, I can, yeah. So I think, I think what I wanted to really share, or invite people to kind of like contemplate on, is that, the body has the potential to heal itself, right? The body has the potential to heal itself. And we need to kind of like want to ease a little bit, with what we need to do, for the client, but more tapping into, this innate, the resource that they already have, to heal, right? Our innate capacity to inspire our own healing, and that's one, and another. I'm just reading. Oh, and another thing is that we exist for the most part disconnected, right? On many levels, and and of course, our sort of like this expectation to compartmentalize in order to survive. Yeah. So healing for me is about co-creating sort of like this connection, because I really feel that treatment also reinforces the disconnection, where the symptoms are addressed but disconnected from the spirit, the soul, the energy, and so forth. I really feel that treatment reinforces the disconnection in terms of how we view healing. And a lot of my clients have gone through a lot of treatment, and for them it's like nothing, it works, but and then until it doesn't work. So a lot of people are really seeking, are desperately longing or seeking sort of like a different approach to healing, that where they are seen as a whole person.
Mm.
Go ahead.
I want to check my understanding. I think the first thing you said was the body has intelligence, it has ability to heal,
So yeah.
and that we need to kind of allow the body and maximize the body's ability to find healing. Was that your first point?
Um, um, really create an opportunity, whatever we do, whether in yoga, whether in medicine, whether in acupuncture, and really look for, really create an opportunity for the body to find its way, to heal. So from the inside out. So less of what we have to do, but tap into what so sort of the body's awareness and the body's knowing in terms of what is happening, and her working from healing from there. Because every time when client comes, we get stuck into, okay, what is it that I need to do? What is it I need to do? What is it that the clients need to do?
I think I know what you're saying. You're saying we often try to add things on top on a
Yes.
very surface level.
Yeah.
We're hitting
And
very superficially, and we're like, do this, do that, do this. But it might not
yes.
be about doing, it might be about finding the core
Yes.
cause.
Yeah, yes. And I think we can have another long conversation in terms of what core issues are when I work somatically, but it just in terms of just focusing on your question, it says, what is it that we need to do? Um, and sometime finding a way in terms of what does the client feel that the body needs in this moment, right? And really slow things down a little bit more. And even the first engagement of really getting to know the client rather than what's happening with the symptom and stuff like that, really essence of who they are, that is what can really come out and promote healing. It's if we talk about the body has wisdom and it's the inner wisdom, yeah, it's 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 very simple, but it's sometimes hard to describe what I do in terms of tapping in to that for the client. It's for me, it's an intuitive sense in terms of what is happening for the client and what they're not seeing, and just allowing the body to tell the story, to speak of the experience rather than the mind, or the mind have been conditioned, trained, or told what's happening with the body. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So there's the truth of what's happening, and the body can speak that truth.
Yes.
But the words that we've been taught from our culture may actually not represent fully the truth of what's the experience of the suffering that you're
Sure.
meeting. Ah.
Okay, so the culture is wrong.
The culture may be unhealthy sometimes, yes.
So,
Uh,
but yeah,
can can I clarify on the second point? The second point
of course, yeah,
you had said that patients don't are often feeling disconnected because we're working on this surface level, and
yes, yeah,
that it's more important that we get to know the patient and have the patient feel seen. That might, you're actually challenging us as physicians and healers
yeah.
to
Okay,
really just get to know the patient first,
yes.
and not to work on these surface symptoms, because that might not be as effective.
Yes, yes, yes. It's what is important first, and then the rest will follow. And so for me, it's like, even when my clients are having a difficulty sharing their emotion or talking about what has happened, to them in the past, I ask them to just encourage the body to speak the truth, or meaning express however the body needs to express, and in the moment that they're with me. And also that I encourage them to be a witness to their truth, as I am a witness to their truth, right? So, and sometimes we're so caught up in terms of what we need to do, we forget to be our own support, a witness to what is happening. Yeah. And so I often said to my client, do you think that the body cannot hear you? Whatever you feel about the body, whatever shame, whatever guilt, whatever you're thinking about, the body can hear you. The body can hear you. How could it not hear you? Here is not through the ears. It's deeper. That is energy. So if you don't like your body, you don't like what's happening with your body, the body can hear you, and it's going to be defensive, right? It's going to be, it's going to protect itself. It's going to guard, and it's be defensive. It's not going to be receiving any treatment, right? So it's about how I view my client's body, really model how the acceptance, really model how they view and accept their body. Again, for me, body centered is the developing a relationship with your body, whatever is happening, the good, the bad, and the ugly, you know.
Mm.
So then the body is less defensive. So then the body now can receive, receive much more openly. When the body is, when you shame the body, you don't like the body, what's happening with you, with the illnesses, whatever, the body is just going to guard and close, right? In order to protect itself, right? So when I said that the body speaks one language, the body hear fear, threat, and danger. So when we sense this message to our body, like, I don't, something is happening with me, I feel this pain, I feel that, the body sense danger, threat, protect.
Yeah. And we see that all the time in primary care. We see so many patients with chronic pain, and no
Yeah.
matter what, we don't know, like, we can't find the origin, we can't find the injury, the physical injury, we can't find these things. But
We need to have more respect, and this is what I mean about connection, a community. We need to be in community, connection with our body, a different relationship, because it's taken a beating. I mean, even thinking about, right now, right? The body sends everything. That's what I mean about the wisdom or intelligence, right? Yeah, it sends, it knows what it knows what we're talking about, right? And so it will guard and protect itself. And when you guard and protect, there's not much openness to receive and heal. Yeah.
And you keep mentioning receiving. What might the body need to receive? Is it care
When you
or
so I do a lot of body-based exercise, because when we've experienced trauma or life, the body contract, constrict, right? And so there's tightness, closeness. And so can you imagine going to healing like this, right? Right? Or even like this, right? Right? And so receive, healing is about receiving. I always encourage my client, in order to connect with the emotion, of be however they need to be in the session, is to allow yourself to be vulnerable, because we heal from a place of vulnerability. A vulnerability, or being vulnerable, is about um, dropping the self-defense,
it's about
de-armoring.
trusting? It's about
Yeah, yeah.
trusting the process, trusting life
Um,
again. Yeah.
it's no, yes, and yes. It means, is being vulnerable, is allow yourself to
To risk
be,
being
in your
hurt.
weakness, right? I feel sad. It's like, vulnerable again. It's when you drop the defense, the self-protection, opening rather constricting, right? And so when we open and we drop ourself, our protective defense, now we can receive, right? We don't need to guard anymore. We don't need to guard from pain, from illnesses, from disappointment, from shame, from anger. So then we can drop a self-defense, and in order to be open to receive. And so when we're open, we can release, right? Opening, being vulnerable, being open, and and so we can release in order
So we
to
can
let go and receive. Yeah.
release some of this, the woundedness that we might be
Yes.
stuck
Yes.
with, and also to receive relationship, because as you said, we heal in community,
Connection.
right?
Yes.
But if
Yes.
we okay,
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
okay, that's
Yeah.
making sense.
Yeah. So again, sometimes a client comes and say that I have this and I have that, I have this and I have that. They're talking about their body, and I'm still like, that's normal, and you're okay. So I immediately connect and view my client's body very differently. They can cry, they can scream, they can be resistant, they can be anything. It's okay.
You
And
you
more,
accept it.
yes, yes, thank you.
Mhm.
Right? Accept it. I have cancer. I have, autoimmune. I have all of these things. And so, and to be accepted, that's about different relationship with your body. And acceptance is about opening, right?
So you said we heal once we're in vulnerability, but
Yes,
yeah. So we
yes.
heal if we're in resistance
That's a
to
guarding. That's a protection,
guarding.
right?
We
And
can't
that's a
heal very well.
constriction.
Mm.
And when we do body work, we talk a lot about the body goes into constriction, in order to guard and fence off danger, threat, and so forth, right? And even our emotions, and or to guard ourselves from, our emotions and memories, right? So we are in constant constriction. That's why we don't breathe.
Because breathing is a little bit vulnerable.
Yeah, exactly, right? It's
Open your
breathing
chest again.
yeah, yeah, breathing into the disappointment so we can release it a little bit, breathing into the anger and the resentment and the rejection. Just breathe and feel, I'm sure you've heard of this notion of feel to heal, right?
Feel to
Feel
heal.
to heal.
Mm,
Hmm.
mm.
Mm.
So there's acceptance, vulnerability.
Yes, vulnerability, absolutely. It's vulnerability, it's the soul, it's connecting to the soul, it's who you are, it's your humanness. We come with strength, we come with weaknesses, we come with white, dark, every color, right? So vulnerable is connecting to our soul, who we are, our essence, right? It's like, a baby born, um, the first thing, cry, there's a loud scream, and a child run, fall down, and get up, and cry, and hungry, and it's this innate, it's this primal sense that we have. So my work is about really tapping into the that vulnerability.
So I think you were just giving the example that young children and babies are vulnerable and they are just themselves. They're not guarding and hiding, putting masks on
That's
or
it.
anything.
That's
So
it.
you're kind of helping people to kind
Yes.
of shed
Yes.
layers and
Yeah.
to see themselves.
Reclaiming that is, for me, healing is about returning to the primal instinct, returning to the primal response. Primal response. When we don't like it, we say no, and then, when we get angry, we scream. When we get sad, we cry. So really, when I work with the vulnerable essence of who my clients are, it's really about, returning, reclaiming that primal response, that innate, response that was interrupted, violated, you know, right? And so it's a child wanting something, crying out, but it, it was never reciprocated,
The
right?
needs
So
weren't our
yes,
needs weren't
the needs
met,
were
or
met. Yes,
we were shamed for
yes. Now we're
speaking up
getting
too loud.
somewhere. Now the vulnerability is about that instinctual, that primal need, primal response, and
and
we,
being and being honest with it and expressing our needs
yes,
in a healthy way. Okay.
yes, yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
You had mentioned how sometimes when we do treatment, you said treatment reinforces disconnection. Did you mean that treatment like prescribing pills and stuff? Is that what you meant by treatment?
Yeah, and it's sending this signal. Okay, so there is value in treatment and medication, absolutely, but there are a couple steps before, and sometime immediately the client goes there, one medication, and or giving that, and there is the communication that your body's not working, there's something wrong with your body, right? And so we neglect what I mentioned earlier about client coming in and being seen as a whole person and not what's wrong with them, right? And so it's that communication, and that's automatic. It's like, something's wrong with me, I got to do this, I got to take this, if I don't, then something's going to be more wrong than me, and so forth and so forth. And so this is the message that the body is receiving,
Okay.
ongoing. And so this separateness, so then and so when, yeah, and so again, that for me, in terms of, you know um it creates separateness, and when we feel separate, the body feel shamed, and us not trusting, the body, we disconnect, and
Yes,
it's about connection, connecting.
I've heard before that the medical system kind of disrespects. Um, it's like a deficit lens, a lens of deficit. Like we're always looking for what's missing, and then we try to prescribe something to fill in
Yeah.
that gap. But
Yes.
we're
Yeah.
not appreciating what's working well. We're not taking an appreciative approach. We're not
Yes.
recognizing the strengths that the person or that the body already has. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yes. 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 For the most part, yes.
And when you say it reinforces disconnection, is it the disconnection between the person who's trying to heal and their
It's
body?
Yes, it's a disconnection, meaning just treating the symptoms and not the whole person.
Oh, it's a disconnect with what's needed.
Yeah, and just like, seeing the symptoms and treating that, rather than the whole, uh, the
Mm,
whole, the whole person. And of course, I think having sort of like a team of um, professionals that can support um, the spiritual life
mm.
of the client.
Yeah, I recognize that too. I think the majority of humans recognize spiritual life and spiritual needs and spiritual
Mm,
wellness. But
yeah.
I think the disciplines that I was trained in never really included too much of that. It touches on it very tangentially, but it's not, I guess we would refer to your local temple, your local church or
Yes, yeah.
mosque for that.
Um,
Mhm.
you know, spiritual life, spiritual spirit for me, it's not um, just a religion, but it's it's the mind, it's the body, it's the energy, it's the soul, it's the resources, it's so basically treating within context of the client. I would imagine context, right?
Mm,
And each of our client comes with different context. Yeah.
yeah. We
Yeah.
often speak only of the
Yeah.
biological
Yeah.
context, the social
Yeah.
context, and economic context. We
Yeah.
very rarely explore spiritual context.
Yes. Yeah.
We don't usually do that.
And really, like, the spirit is the self. I mean, like, we're born with, I mean, we're as um a spirit individual, right? And do you remember I mentioned earlier about a definition that I look up in terms of a soul is, understanding soul as, exist even after um, physical death, right? And
Hmm.
so there's more. When I trained, when I um, train others in this work, they always they often I am asked, okay, if the client says this and we say what, if the client do this and we do what, and they want a
What's the
script.
algorithm?
Yeah, they want a script, and I say like this. I encourage them to look for what the client is not saying. Work with what the client is not saying.
Hmm. Look for what's not said, and
Yeah.
maybe that you can
Yeah, and
explore more.
that's working with the body. And so for me, it's allowing the body to unfold the story, the experience, the unconscious, right? And working with what the unconscious, working with what you don't see, what the client's not telling you. So really look for that and be with that and sense into that and work with that.
Hmm. If someone wants to learn more about what you're talking about, where might they go? Is there a website? Do you have a
Yes,
website? Is
I,
there?
I I do have a website. I mean, if you type in my name, Ratha Chek, RATHACHEK, and then I would come up. I'm on Psychology Today. I'm on the website and Facebook and so forth. So I'm easily um accessible. I'm accessible. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Um, was there anything that you wanted to leave the listeners with? I appreciate your time. It's already been over an hour, so
Oh, thank you. As one who works with the body, I'm not verbal description, verbal stuff can sometimes be challenging for me.
yeah,
And I'm working on it. And so I really appreciate you reframe what I said because I'm more, yeah, I'm more,
you're a
I sense,
feeler. You're
yeah,
a
I
deep
said
feeler.
yes, yes.
You're
And when I sense it's I'm down here, I'm not up there. And sometime when I teach, it's about really working on making that shift to my head and teach from my head rather than in my body. And I, you
My
know,
my industry is all about being up
over
here.
here.
We're up here so much that we forget about the rest of the
Mm,
entire body. Yeah.
and when and like, when client come and then they tell me in terms of, oh, I've shared this and I've shared that, like, do you want to know more of my story? Like, you want to know? I go, I'm okay for now. Okay. Because you can share me all that you like. And ha- you know um
All that surface
for
talk,
your
all this.
understanding, yeah, like all your understanding, however, it's mostly things that you are aware of, things that but there are a lot of things that you do not know, you are not aware of, and that is in the body. So our session is about create an opportunity for the body to tell the story, for for body to experience, and then and now we have something to work with, and this is what we work with the body's unfolding narrative and stories. Yeah.
Mm. Thank you, Rata. I think that was amazing. That was such a interesting conversation. And so someone can connect with you by just Googling your name,
Yeah, yeah, your
Ratha
name. Yes,
space
or
CHEK.
yes, or type in integrative somatic therapy practice, but that can be challenging. Just my name, and I really feel that for whoever needs to contact me, we'll find a way. So I don't worry.
You believe in that the universe has a way.
Yes,
Yes.
I do.
Yeah. Thank you again so much for sharing
Welcome.
your wisdom and sharing your knowledge and really adding so much interesting
I hope so.
information and a whole different way of thinking and understanding and appreciating the body for our listeners.
You're welcome.
Okay, stop
So we say
recording.
goodbye here. Bye, Laura.